All right, here we go. Welcome, everyone. Thank you. Oops, getting ahead of myself. Welcome to part 2 of how to build your home apothecary. Last week was part 1. So if you're watching this later and you haven't seen that one already, I encourage you to go and watch that one. We talked just about the difference between herbalism and Western medicine, the difference between the two approaches. And we discussed gardening and just very broad overview of detoxing your kitchen. So, my name is Sarah. I'm a nurse. I gave a more lengthy introduction to myself in the first video, so you can go watch it for that. But I've been a nurse for over 17 years. I am an herbalist. I've been studying about herbs for about 6 years. I have 6 children. I've been married for 20 years, and that's just me in a nutshell. I've started studying herbalism because of my own health journey, and it's been a very spiritual, mental, and emotional journey as well as for health for me. So we're going to jump right into part 2, and we're going to talk about cooking with herbs. So like I said, last time we were talking about, getting rid of toxic cookware in your kitchen, getting rid of the processed foods. And now we're going to talk about cooking with herbs. It's a very basic way to start into herbalism. Um, Really, a lot of herbalism is just supporting the body in what it already knows how to do. And sometimes we do that with chemical components of herbs, and sometimes we do it through nutrition, but both of them are necessary. There's lots of benefits to cooking with herbs. If you've never cooked with fresh herbs, that is so sad because they are so delicious. They enhance flavor. They add depth, complexity, and freshness so you can add flavor and excitement to your dish without adding all this stuff that's not super good for us in excess, like salt, sugar, or fat. Obviously, fat and salt are necessary and important, but spices and herbs just really, um, it not only adds flavor, but it enhances the flavor of the food that's already there. Health benefits. Many herbs have anti-inflammatory, antibacterial, and antioxidant properties to support overall health. A lot of herbs like basil, parsley, cilantro. Not mentioned here is stinging nettle and dandelion leaf. Those are ones that you can cook with, throw into your salads, and they contain a ton of nutrients, including vitamins, minerals, and phytonutrients. A lot of these herbs, like mint, ginger, fennel, they aid with digestion. Black pepper, they can reduce bloating and discomfort. Also, peppermint. Peppermint, for example, is known to close the esophageal sphincter. So it can really help with acid reflux after a meal, especially if it was a heavy meal. So that's why you get peppermints at the end of when you go to a restaurant and they offer you a peppermint at the end. Originally, it was peppermint leaf to help you close the esophageal sphincter and to aid in digestion. Peppermint also has lots of cooling properties. Um, Herbs allow for diverse flavor combinations and experimentation in cooking. Aromatherapy too. Fresh herbs release pleasant aromas that can enhance mood and appetite. So if you are, I showed a few slides back in the last video. Um, Something I have in my kitchen is a hydroponic little system sitting on my counter with just a few herbs in it, like 5. And it's fun to just throw them in to whatever you're making and experiment with it and see if you like the flavor, add more or less, just top it to whatever it is you're eating, breakfast in the morning, eggs. You'll be surprised at how much you like them. Okay. Now, choosing your kitchen herbs and spices. This is something that I've learned in my journey and research is you've got to beware of the grocery store spices. Heavy metals like lead, arsenic, cadmium, and mercury have been found in some cooking spices and herbs sold in grocery stores. This can happen due to contaminated soil, water, or improper processing and packaging. A 2021 Consumer Reports study found detectable levels of heavy metals in some common spices, including turmeric, thyme, and oregano. And what it said in the report was they were concerning levels. So, um, it's it's something to be aware of. And like something I started doing is I started just buying them in bulk because I use spices a lot and I have a big family. I just started buying them and making sure to have this USDA organic stamp on it because that means it is 100% organic and it's not going to have the contaminants in it. And you can put them in these cute jars. I did not make this very cute. As you can see, I just have tape and marker, but you should make some cute labels to make it, aesthetically appealing for your kitchen. Buy from reputable brands that test for contaminants. So do some research. Look for organic and certified products, though not a guarantee. Some certifications require testing. Avoid imported spices from unknown sources with loose regulations. So that's why it is advisable to try to get them from within the United States just because of that quality, just a little bit more rigorous quality control on it. Or you can wash and grow your own herbs when possible. And then you can be sure that there aren't heavy metals and that they're organic because you haven't sprayed pesticide all over them. Okay, next we're going to talk about making herbal medicine. So this picture over here to the left is what I grew up with the medicine cabinet looking like, full of pharmaceuticals. A lot of them probably expired. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention in this slide, talking about expiration dates. Um, you like some people don't know that these herbs and spices do expire. They're going to lose their potency, their healing properties, and their flavor over time. And a general rule is to try to use your herbs and spices in your kitchen within 1 year of purchasing them. And after that, you can tell, like if you smell in the jar and you don't get whacked with a pretty heavy scent, they're probably not really useful to you anymore at least in the sense of um, the medicinal properties that you want in your herbs. So it's useful. It helps. It's smart to go through your spices. And I did that when I learned that. And almost all of mine were expired. So it's an investment. It's a good time to throw some old things out and invest in new, higher quality organic. Okay, so back to this. So our goal here in really trying to shift our mindset is moving from this type of mentality over to this type of medicine closet, right? Like we just have these things on hand because you're not going to turn to it if you're not confident you don't have it on hand, something that you can use in the moment. Because when the symptoms are really uncomfortable, we're running to something to get relief. And so we talked last time about the difference. The reason we run to these things is they do provide immediate relief, but it's not getting to the bottom of the issue. A lot of times you take something over here on the left and you get immediate relief within 15, 30 minutes. Herbs, you just have to know that it is a process and it's going to take a little bit more time than just 15 to 30 minutes. Sometimes you feel a very quick, immediate relief. But sometimes you just have to remember that you need to be diligent in taking it regularly. So, in an acute illness, you would want to be taking your herbal supplement, you know, every few hours throughout the day or 2 to 3 times a day for over a couple days to a week and stick with it. So I think that's something that was an adjustment for me is I don't have, I'm just gonna pop this pill and I'm gonna feel okay for 12 hours. Um, so it is a little bit different that way. Um, but what we talked about last time is it is really important to let the body go through the full inflammatory process and the cascade of events that happen when the body is trying to detox and heal from whatever it is that is making you feel sick. So it's just a shift in mindset to not suppress what your body's doing, but rather support it to get it through more quickly and in a healthy way. That's not also causing damage to other places. Okay, so we're going to talk about 5 essential herbs that I think is a good starting place. If you've never used herbs, you've never dealt with them ever, these are kind of 5 that I think are must-haves and is just a good place to start. We talked last time about good sources where you can buy um, herbs in bulk online that are organic and good quality, and they are dried. So it's something to balance and be aware of. Like in the beginning, I would buy, a pound of something and realize, okay, for my family, I'm definitely not going to go through a pound in the time I need to before it's going to start losing its quality. Um, So, start small and these 5 I feel like are versatile and things that are like pretty easy to use and good to have on hand for for different things that your family maybe have issues with. So, let's start talking about the first one, which is yarrow. This is what yarrow looks like. A lot of these herbs you'll find act like invasive weeds. They just spread like crazy. And honestly, I feel like that's a blessing from God that these herbs, medicinal herbs, very powerful ones, grow so readily and spread so quickly. So my yarrow that's in my garden right now, it's in a bed and it's really trying to take up the whole the whole garden bed. So that's why beds are useful or pots to kind of keep them contained because they will spread. They would love to take over the whole garden and that's awesome. Anyways, the yarrow kind of has this flat white flower on top and there's even a bee right there on it. So flowers are so good for your garden, just to attract the bees for pollination. So I love having the yarrow out there. Yarrow is very hardy. It does great here in the St. George heat. It's a perennial herb, which means it comes back every year, and it's known for its feathery leaves. So down here you can't really see. It has these feathery leaves and the clustered flowers, and it's been used in traditional medicine for centuries due to its powerful healing properties. It helps with wound healing and blood clotting. Known as nature's bandage, yarrow helps stop bleeding and promotes faster wound healing. So we're going to talk later about these specific types of remedies and how you can make them, but I honestly like to just grab some of the yarrow and, chop it up, mush it up, kind of make it into a paste and just slap it on whatever is going on with a wound or skin issue. It's really great for that. It has anti-inflammatory properties, so it helps with swelling, bruises, and muscle pain. So you could also use, so what I just described is basically a poultice. You can use that for those things as well. Digestive support, it eases bloating, indigestion, and cramps. So, this is something that you can also ingest for its benefits. Menstrual health, it regulates menstrual cycles and reduces heavy bleeding and cramps. Fever and cold, it induces sweating to help break fevers and fight colds more quickly. It supports circulatory health. It helps to lower high blood pressure and improve circulation. It has antimicrobial and antiseptic properties. So like I said before, it's used in poultices and salves for cuts, burns, and infections. Okay, so the next one is chamomile. And a lot of you may have heard of this. It's a very common herb. Um, it it is not as hardy as the yarrow. I will say I've had a little hard time keeping it going in the heat out there. But it is a gentle daisy-like herb, and these daisies are just really, really tiny. It's known for its calming and medicinal properties. It's been used for centuries in teas, tinctures, and skincare remedies. So it promotes relaxation and sleep. It helps to reduce stress, anxiety, and insomnia. It really has a sweet taste too. So like if you just have straight chamomile as a tea, it's really, really nice, lovely experience as a tea. It also aids in digestion, soothes bloating, gas, indigestion. It has anti-inflammatory properties, so it can ease muscle pain, joint discomfort, and skin irritation. So that's why it's great in salve. Um, it supports immune health. It helps fight colds and infections. So it does have antimicrobial properties as well. Menstrual relief, it reduces cramps and regulates cycles just because, I mean, you just think of it as like having these relaxing properties, right? All across the board. We talked last time about how the herbs kind of have, they're multifaceted, a lot of them. And, you know, all of these are like that. Skin healing. So used in creams and salves for eczema, wounds, and rashes. And actually, I read a study that said that German chamomile was one of the most effective essential oils for eczema. So just something to be aware of. Oral health reduces gum inflammation and mouth sores. So you could even just swish some of that in your mouth, some of the tea that you make. And it is safe for littles. You can give this to babies and it helps with general discomforts, you know, fussiness, tummy upset, teething, and things like that. This one talks about a steam inhalation for congestions and colds. And I would also say that for skin, you could even put some of that in your bath to help soothe inflamed skin. Okay, stinging nettle. This is quite possibly my favorite herb. Maybe. That says, you know, that's saying a lot because I love so many herbs, but this one is just so great. I think everyone needs to have this one. It's a nutrient-rich herb and it's has all these medicinal properties, but it does have like stinging hairs on it. So if you are growing it, you just have to be careful when you're handling it, wear gloves or something. But if you dry it or cook it, then the sting is neutralized and it's fine. But as for the nutrients, it is high in iron, calcium, magnesium, and vitamins A, C, and K. So, you know, if you have, for instance, dairy problems, or you are menopausal and you need support for your bones, this is great for that. Low iron, same thing. You can get a good source of iron out of it. And that's why down here it says that it's going to strengthen hair um, because it's just giving you that extra nutritional boost. Um, It is also a natural antihistamine. So if you deal with allergies, seasonal allergies that you just have that constant runny nose and you're sneezing all the time, it doesn't matter what you do, the wind blows and you're just a mess and your eyes are watering. Um, I am one of those people. I've always had to deal with allergies since I was young. And adding this, like if I can discipline myself to take some of this every day, I like to take it as a tea. It's not as delicious as like chamomile or peppermint, but I think it's fine. I don't have a problem with the flavor, but just the benefits of having the reduced allergy symptoms is just amazing to be able to have that for um as a natural source. My allergies got so bad at one point that the doctor literally just told me to get the three different generic brands of, the allergy medications that are over the counter and just take one for a week and then rotate it to the next one and the next one because your body gets tolerant of them. And I was like, this is terrible. This is terrible. I don't want to be taking all these pills just around the clock always for the rest of my life. So anyway, I love that for this reason too. Um, Boosts joint and muscle health. So we talked about the calcium in it, but it also helps reduce inflammation, making it useful for arthritis and muscle pain. It supports the kidneys and urinary health. It acts as a diuretic, so it stimulates the kidneys and bladder to be flushing things out of the urinary system and supporting bladder health. Um, Balances blood sugar. It can actually help people with type 2 diabetes to regulate their blood sugar levels. And you know that that helps everything. That helps inflammation in the body to reduce blood sugar levels, um, you know, all of those things, and can help curb cravings as well. We talked about how it helps hair grow, but also reduces dandruff when you use it as a rinse. So you can rinse it in your hair too. It aids digestion. It supports gut health and relieves bloating because it is anti-inflammatory, menstrual and hormonal support. It helps to reduce heavy periods and supports reproductive health as well. So I love that herb. I just think it's great. Okay, peppermint that probably everyone is familiar with. It is very cooling and aromatic herb. I really seriously get aromatherapy when I'm out in my garden and I just spray water on top of the peppermint and I just get this big whiff of that really cool, sweet smell of peppermint. And it really is so great. Um, so peppermint is a hybrid of watermint and spearmint. So it's related to the spearmint and is valued for digestive, respiratory, and pain relief benefits. So obviously we talked already about how it aids in digestion. It relieves bloating, gas, nausea, indigestion, but it also relieves headaches and migraines. If you take peppermint oil and you apply it to your temples, it can really ease tension headaches. Um, it goes well in a salve or an oil that you can use in place of like icy hot, that to just like really calm down that tension and inflammation in the muscles. It clears congestion. So it's a really good herbal tea to have when you have a cold, sinus infection, and allergies. It just really opens the airways. It boosts energy and focus. It enhances alertness and reduces mental fatigue, supports pain relief, like we talked about, just very anti-inflammatory, freshens your breath. That's why all the gum is flavored peppermint. And it also supports oral health. The gum we have today doesn't have those benefits. So stick a peppermint leaf in your mouth and you'll get some benefits in your oral health. It can also ease menstrual cramps because it acts as a muscle relaxant. So it'll also help relax the uterus. Antimicrobial, it fights bacteria and promotes gut health. So again, this one talks about a steam inhalation. If you have one of those humidifiers, you can throw some of that peppermint oil in there and help reduce that congestion and improves breathing. And also, obviously, goes great in toothpaste. You can make your own toothpaste and throw some of that in there and to freshen your breath. Okay, elderberry. Elderberry is also amazing. I love it. I think it tastes nice too. It's a very powerful immune boosting herb, and it's known for its antiviral and antioxidant properties. It's been traditionally used to fight colds, flu, and inflammation. It boosts the immune system. Like, the way it works is kind of like your body takes a day or two once it's introduced to a pathogen to kind of put it on trial and decide, do we really need to, send the cascade to get rid of this thing? But the elderberry can help kind of flip that switch on sooner. So that's why when you take elderberry, you can, like, sometimes I'll take it and like, if I feel something happening in my throat, and I'm like, oh no, here it comes. Sometimes it will never develop into a full-blown cold. Or if I do get slammed with a cold or flu, it really does shorten the duration of how long you're sick, and you're anticipating being out for a week because you see your family experiencing that. And you have it, some discomfort for a day or two, and then you're good to go. You do have to be careful with this one because if you have a hyperactive immune system, like if you have a lot of what is called autoimmune issues, that is a lot of the times attributed to a hyperactive immune system. And in that case, elderberry could potentially be too stimulating for you. It could exacerbate some of the um, other autoimmune issues that you have going on. So something to be aware of with that. It's all about balance. You don't want an underactive immune system, but you don't want an overactive immune system either. Okay, so it's rich in vitamin C, oxidants, and flavonoids, and that's why it also helps to fight infections. That's why it's boosting the immune system. It's just giving it that support. It shortens the duration and severity of colds and flus symptoms, like we talked about. It also helps to clear mucus, soothes cough, and reduce sinus congestion. Anti-inflammatory and antioxidant, so it protects cells from oxidative stress and reduces inflammation. It also is good for the heart. It supports healthy blood pressure and circulation. It aids in digestion if you're taking like the full berry because it has high fiber content. It also can support skin health because of these antioxidants. A lot of people like to make it into a syrup, and it's really great to make a syrup at the beginning of the cold and flu season, and it lasts, oh, I can't remember how long it lasts. It's like a good couple of weeks that it'll last in your fridge, and you can just kind of have everyone take a shot of it, regularly. You can make it into a tea, but something we're not getting into detail in this particular class is when they're the berries or the roots and they're just a thicker herb rather than the leafy fine consistency. It needs to be a decoction instead of just an herbal water infusion. So we won't get into that right now, but just to be aware of. The berries themselves, you cannot take them, you can't consume them without boiling them, without cooking them, because it is toxic. But when you cook them, then it neutralizes it and it's great. So something to be aware of. Don't just go pull elderberries off the tree and eat them. Oh, and lozenges and gummies. If you are extra ambitious, you can make some of those. Okay, so now we're talking about collecting your herbs and storing them. It's very important how you how you are storing your herbs because you want to preserve the flavor, aroma, and potency for as long as possible. And you also don't want them to get contaminated with bacteria and mold because then they're ruined. So when you are, starting on this and contemplating it, you want to do some planning ahead of time and get you some good airtight jars, like the mason jars, to prevent moisture exposure. And you'll see in right here in my with mine, This is some um, non-bleached wax paper that you put the waxy side down so that you're not getting the metal contaminating your tincture. But you can store your dried herbs in the mason jars as well. I like that. They need to be stored in a dark place to protect them from light. It can just help them last longer. So you either want them to be stored in a dark place or have opaque containers. So amber jars, if you can get them. You don't want to store them in plastic if you can, because they can absorb odors and plastics over time. And also it's not as airtight. You want to keep away from heat and light, like I said, with the light. The coolness does matter when it's getting too hot. Oops, sorry. Um, oh, why isn't it going back? There we go. Sorry about that. If it gets too warm, it also starts to break it down and it starts to lose its healing properties more quickly. So try not to store them near something that's warm. Um, cool and dark is best. You want to also keep it in a room that's nice and dry. You can use the silica gel packets to suck all the moisture out, especially if you are trying to dry your own herbs. Sometimes if you go through the dehydration process and they're not totally 100% dry and you package them, it's disappointing to open them and find out that they weren't totally dry and there was some moisture and now they're moldy. So you can use those silica gel packets to help, you know, just eliminate any of that extra moisture. Always, always label and date your herbs, because you tell yourself, oh, I'll never forget what this is, but I promise you, you will, and you'll forget how long ago you did it. So always do the name and the date on each storage container. Most dried herbs maintain their peak potency for 6 months to a year, but they can last longer, like up to 3 years if you're storing them really well. So if you store the herbs as whole rather than ground up, then that will also make them have a longer shelf life. And then you can just crush or grind them just before you are going to use them to have the maximum flavor and potency. All right, so now we're going to talk about general tools for making herbal medicine. Mortar and pestle, that's what this is. Um, it's for grinding your dried herbs. I also really like to use a coffee grinder, just like one of those little ones, and it works so fast. You just stick it in, push the button, and it grinds it to powder very quickly. So I love using that. Cutting board and knife, obviously, for chopping your fresh herbs. You will want a cheesecloth or muslin bag so that you can strain any oil infusions or tinctures that you make. You're also going to want measuring cups and spoons so that you can be measuring out your things in the recipes. Sorry, one second. And then a kitchen scale is really helpful also for weighing herbs that you're using for your tinctures and oils, and glass mixing bowls or stainless steel. I try to avoid using plastic when I can. It's just so none of the microplastics are getting into whatever I'm making. Um, okay, so for steeping tinctures, infusions, and herbal oils, you'll want the mason jars, tea infuser, or French press for when you're making your actual tea. Some people like to use the single reusable tea bags or those metal balls. Those work well too. Double broiler is what you're going to need for making oils and salves, just to melt everything down together. And slow cooker if you want to use that to kind of speed up the process in your herbal oil infusions. Um, a fine mesh strainer that we talked about. So if you, I don't know, I like to use the cloths because I don't like little pieces sneaking through. But the bigger like berries and barks, you can use a mesh strainer for that. You want some dark glass bottles with droppers so that you can administer them when you're done. Some salve jars and tins for when you're making the balms and ointments, and any spray bottles if you want to make sprays or toners. You want some labels, markers, gloves and apron, and pH strips if you're making skincare formulations, you want to test the acidity. Okay, so when you're organizing your apothecary, do some planning, like I said. What are the types of remedies you want to have? Make a list, decide where in your home you're going to store everything, where are you going to store your supplies, your containers, your fresh herbs, and then the products that you make. Where will you store all of your tools? So kind of clear out an area to prepare for all of your stuff. Okay, now we're going to talk about actually making these things. This is a quick overview. I'm not going to be demonstrating anything in this particular class, but herbal tea is where a lot of people start. You're going to take 1 to 2 teaspoons of dried herbs or 2 to 3 teaspoons of fresh herbs. Then you're going to take 8 ounces, which is a cup of hot water. You don't want it to be boiling for your more delicate herbs. Herbs like chamomile, for instance, can actually have a bitter flavor if it's too hot for too long. You also can add honey, lemon, cinnamon, or ginger to make it more flavorful if you'd like. If you're going to use fresh herbs, make sure you rinse them and gently crush them to release the oils. It's like when we're making a tea, it's literally the oils we're pulling out that have the components, that have the healing components in it, and you'll see it. You'll see like a little layer of oil sitting on top of the water. So you want to crush your fresh herbs so that their oils will come out. Dried herbs, they're already crushed up, so generally speaking, so you're good on that. You're going to pour the hot water over the herbs, either in your teacup or in your teapot or infuser. And the reason that it's good to pour them over your herbs is they like to float up to the top. So that will just make sure that they immerse in it. And then you're going to let it steep for 5 to 7 minutes. If they're harder herbs like rosemary, thyme, cinnamon sticks, 10 to 15 minutes. And like I said, I'm not going through a whole, well, actually, are we? I can't remember. No. But we'll talk about decoctions in a future lesson. So you remove the herbs. You can either strain them through a strainer or just have your tea infuser, and then you add your sweeteners and you can drink it. So here's a variety of different methods you can use. This is a pot. This is like a pot I have. I like the clear glass so I can look at it and see what's happening. And it has this big metal mesh steeper in the middle. So you can put the herbs in there to steep your tea. I also have one of these French presses and it's really fun. So you put the herbs in the bottom and pour the hot water over it and kind of mix it together. And then you use this mesh, I don't know what you call it, plunger to push them down. And then what's left at the top is just your liquid. I have my own personal mug that I tend to use more often. You can make it fancy, get these tea sets. A lot of people like these old Japanese clay tea sets. They're really cool. You can use one of these little metal balls that we were talking about. Some of them are more rigid. Some of them have like the chain. My kids love the little animated silicone steepers. That's how I get them to to drink tea, and they love it. They think that's so fun. Okay, now we're going to talk about making infused oils for balms or salves. So you can infuse oils with herbs like calendula, which is great for skin, comfrey, which is great for muscle pain, or lavender for relaxation. You're gonna get like a cup of dried herbs or 2 cups fresh and a cup of carrier oil. So whatever oil you're going to infuse it into. Slow infusion is the best, but it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks. You're basically completely covering the oil or the herb with the oil, and then you're going to seal it, let it sit in a warm, dark place for 4 to 6 weeks, and you're going to shake it occasionally, and then you'll strain it with the cheesecloth. A quicker version is heating the oil and the herbs together in a double broiler for 2 to 3 hours, and then you can strain it and use it right away. I don't like doing this. I don't like putting heat on the herbs. I like to do the long, slow method for best results, but sometimes you're in a hurry, you know. But you can customize, so then you can use the oil into a recipe with the salve. So you can use one for pain relief, for dry skin, for cuts and scrapes. But what is okay, so we're going to talk about salves. What's the difference between a balm and a salve? And there really isn't much of a difference, except, but it comes down to consistency and ingredients. So balms are going to be thicker and firmer. They contain more beeswax or thickening agent to make it solid. It's less oily, so it doesn't often have like olive oil in it, and it's designed to stay on the skin longer rather than being absorbed quickly. It's best for protective barriers, so like lip balms or muscle rubs or protective skin barriers. Um, it's going to be more waxy. The salves are more oily. They have more herbal infused oils and less beeswax. So you can kind of spread it in and it absorbs into the skin. It can soak in more quickly and it's good for healing and soothing. So wound healing, burns, rashes, sunburns, joint relief, pain, etc. So if you want something thicker and more protective, go with a balm. If you need deep healing and fast absorption, then it's a salve that you want. So how you make a salve. This is a basic recipe. 1 cup of infused herbal oil that we talked about how you can do that. 1 ounce of beeswax. And by the way, you can use essential oils if you don't want to infuse your own oil. 1 ounce of beeswax, and then, oh, and then they mentioned um, I forgot I already had essential oil on here as well. So you can use the essential oils and just use a regular olive oil if you don't have an infused oil or if you don't want to make one. But and then you just have your tins or jars to store them in. You use the double boiler method to melt down the beeswax. And, you know, if you have coconut oil in it, you'll want to melt the coconut oil with it. And then once it cools down all the way, then you add your oils because the heat can damage them or they lose their potency. So cool them down to, you know, like 150 at least. And then you can pour them into the tins or jars while they're still liquid, and then they'll cool and solidify in about 1 to 2 hours. And then you can use them for up to a year. Okay, this is how you make a poultice. It's very simple. Um, you're just going to take your fresh or dried herbs and you're going to chop it up, mush it together. You can use water, oil, or vinegar, and you're forming a paste. You can use clean cloth, gauze, or bandage, or you can, and that's basically to hold it in place. So you can just honestly plop your herb paste that you've made right onto the skin and then secure it with the gauze or bandage. And you just let it sit there for several hours. Here's one that they, you know, it's kind of common to see a poultice like this where the herb mixture is actually inside this, and then it's kind of like seeping out the liquid onto the skin and you can just hold it there. So that's another way that you can use it. So we've got a list here: wounds, infections, inflammation and pain, cough and congestion, and also drawing out toxins. Those are all the different types of poultices. Tinctures This is very similar to how you make an infused oil, but you're using um, either alcohol or vinegar or glycerin. And these are going to be drawing out those healing components in a more powerful way and longer lasting. And these are ones that you can ingest. So you basically take, and this is a very basic method. This can get very, very technical, but basically a cup of dried herbs, 2 cups of your alcohol or vinegar, or glycerin, and then your glass jar. I talked about having that wax paper, cheesecloth, and the dropper bottles. So you place your herbs in the jar, you add your solvent on top, and you make sure that your herb is fully submerged. And you close the jar tightly, label it, store it in a cool, dark place 4 to 6 weeks, and you want to shake it every 1 to 2 days. And this is to just keep the extraction process going, as well as to make sure that the herb continues to be covered with that. So it's not oxidizing and developing into a mold. And then after 4 to 6 weeks, you can strain it using your cheesecloth, pour it into the glass dropper bottles, and boom, you've got your medicine. These are some other tools that I like to have in my home apothecary. Castor oil pack. I've got some links on here, so let me know if you want the slides and you've got all the links. But I keep organic castor oil and a castor oil pack. Those are great for just lots of things. If you have um, uterine fibroids, for instance, and you have or endometriosis, or something's going on with your gallbladder, you have gallstones, just all kinds of things are great to use a castor oil pack for. It can also help detox your liver. It can help move your lymphatic system, things like that. Blood pressure cuff. I'm a nurse, so I always want to have that kind of thing. I have blood pressure cuffs, stethoscope, thermometer. It's nice to be monitoring temperature if you have a fever. Your essential oil diffuser, a pulse oximeter. That's where you can assess for blood oxygen, which should be between 90 and 100. And also you can monitor the heart rate on that. The humidifier to help loosen secretions when you have a respiratory issue. Bandages and muslin for the poultices. Medical scissors. You want some nice, clean, sterile scissors. Because anything that's introduced to the skin could potentially be introducing a pathogen. So you want those to always be clean and sterile. Steri strips, you can use the steri strips in place of stitches. A lot of times it's effective. It depends on how deep it is. Nebulizer, you can actually use essential oils and other natural things with a nebulizer. It's really helpful if you have like a deep, long-lasting respiratory illness. I like to have a sling joint stabilizer for sprains, strains, and things like that. Reusable ice packs and the bean or rice bags that you can make them cold, but I most often heat them up. So those are just some other ideas, things to have on hand. And that is all I have. So does anyone have any questions before we hop off? And if you do, just type it in the chat. If not, I'm going to just go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you again for coming, and okay, I'll get that for you. And the next classes that I have are going to be I'm going to continue providing them on Zoom. So if that's what works best for you, they will be $10 each. These first two were free, and the ones moving forward are $10 each. And if you are watching this later and you'd like a copy of the slides, just send me an email, sarahsherbalgarden@gmail.com, and I would be happy to send you a copy of the slides. So thanks everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.